A few years ago, I wrote this challenge with my friend Zoe called the Not So Berry Challenge. And basically, it's a 10-generation legacy in The Sims 4, and each generation is themed around a different color. So the first generation is mint, all of the traits are sort of a greenish color, and we made up a story to go along with that. And then we kept doing that for 10 whole generations. It's really fun, and I can link the rules down below for you, but I've been playing it again on my Twitch channel recently, and I've just gotten to the gray generation. And so today we're going to build a new house for this gray gen of Not So Berry. I realize all of this might sound really weird if you've never heard of it before, and it's about to get a little bit weirder, so just hear me out, okay? With this challenge, because each generation is a color theme, a lot of us really play it up. So like for the red gen, your sim has red hair, they've got like an all red house, they wear all red clothes. And you totally don't have to do that if you're playing the challenge. It isn't a rule, but given that I created this challenge, obviously I really play into it, and so I really go all out with the color theming for each generation. The problem is, with the gray gen, the color theming is really weird. There's something about an all gray house that is just not the same good vibes as like an all yellow house. The yellow house that we had last generation was like so happy, it was so pretty, and I was sort of dreading trying to build an all gray house because it just sounds sort of bland. It definitely doesn't have to be, and I think that I managed to make it turn out pretty well, but just the sound of it does not sound as fun as like a more colorful build. So going into this, I was worried about it, especially because when I was playing the previous generation, the way that I do this is like the Gen 3 sim is yellow, so their whole main house is yellow, but their kids are the gray gen, so the kids' bedrooms, like the toddler room, that will be gray. The kids will grow up in like their gen's room color. Does that make sense? It is very difficult to make a toddler's bedroom that is all gray. I guess partially because a lot of the furniture that we have for toddlers in The Sims 4 is like very colorful and bright, and I just want to use like cutesy toys and colorful and bright things, and then it has to be all gray. It was really tough to furnish those rooms. So I also had that kind of in the back of my mind going into this like adult gray gen house. But like I said, I think it turned out really, really well. So let me walk you through what I've built here. Basically, the gray gen is supposed to be an athlete. Like I had mentioned, all of the generation's traits are sort of based around the color of that generation to the best of our abilities. So for this part of the challenge, all of the traits are sort of gray-ish, or at least like black, like they kind of fit into that vibe. So this sim has to have the active, slob, and music lover traits. Their main things are to master the singing, parenting, and athletic skills. They're going to be in the athlete career and do the bodybuilder aspiration. And aside from just like the trait color schemes, kind of the goal of the challenge was to force myself and my friend Zoe, when we were playing The Sims, to like branch out of our comfort zones a little bit and like try out different things. So at a certain point, you have to like leave a sim at the altar. There's a bunch of like really random little aspects that try and force you to try different parts of the game. And so in doing this, we kind of tried to make sims that were like multi-dimensional. I don't know if you also fall into this trap, but when I like have in my mind a sim who's like in the athlete career, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna max the athletic skill, and then I don't really have them pursue like other hobbies or interests at all. I sort of just stick them in the box, like the athlete box, and do the fitness skill, and that's pretty much it. And then of course they'll probably build like the cooking skills and stuff just from like being alive. But otherwise, I don't really try and have my sims branch out and have like multiple interests. And so in writing this challenge, we were trying to make these sims that maybe were in the athlete career, but also really liked singing and wanted to max the singing skill. Because those are two traits that you might not always pair together. You might not necessarily think that a sim who's in the athlete career would then also try and master the singing skill. One generation is supposed to be an evil sim, they're in the criminal career, but they also love baking. Like we kind of tried to pair these traits together to make sims that were maybe not something you would always expect, while also sort of trying to write a bit of a storyline. So like in this generation, their parents were supposed to be like super busy. The previous heir has the loner trait, so they don't really get along with a lot of sims. And by extension, I kind of imagine maybe they weren't super close with their kids. And so in this gen, in the gray gen, we're trying to do the opposite. So the gray gen is supposed to like really prioritize family time and like time with their family. One of the rules is to have a weekly movie night, which honestly, I kind of regret writing. It sounded good at the time, but in actual gameplay, frankly, it's a little bit annoying. But hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight into like what we were aiming for with the challenge and like what we were trying to write. It's been so cool over the last like 5 years to watch Not So Berry kind of take on a life of its own. I never expected that this many people would want to play it. Like, it is so cool to me that other YouTubers still make like Not So Berry challenge Let's Plays and stuff, because this is a challenge that me and my friend wrote when I was in high school, just like for fun, and like posted on my Tumblr and just thought, hey, let's see what happens. I really never anticipated that anybody would even actually play it. Like it was for us, you know, like we made it so that we could play it. I didn't think that any of you would would want to. So it's pretty cool to see people doing it. Now, back to the actual house. What am I trying to build here? I decided that for this generation, it might be kind of fun to move out to Mount Komorebi. This is the world that came with Snowy Escape. I was kind of imagining that because my sim is like gonna be in the athletic career and be super into fitness and stuff, that like a lot of the skill building things that came in this world sort of made sense. Like if they're super into the fitness skill and athletics, they probably would also enjoy like snowboarding and mountain climbing. So I feel like it might be kind of fun to move out here and try and do those things a little bit also. And I also realized that Snowy Escape has a great set of like all gray wallpapers and windows. And so I felt like with this pack, I could make a really cool house that like really fit this generation. So I sort of tried to make a slightly Japanese inspired build. Obviously it's not like super realistic or anything, but I really tried to sort of follow the shape of the houses nearby. Like a lot of the houses in this neighborhood are sort of this exact same shape. I guess houses is maybe a strong word. The shells of fake builds in this neighborhood are kind of this exact same shape. So I was sort of trying to replicate the shape of those a little bit so it felt like it fit in really well in the neighborhood. That's kind of rare for me with Not So Berry. Sometimes I make some real odd things. Like in the last generation, the yellow gen that I was telling you about, that sim is in the astronaut career, and so I had a rocket ship in my house. I don't mean that I had a rocket ship in the yard. I had a rocket ship in my house. I built like a more mid-century sort of style building, and then there was like a courtyard in the middle of the building, and the house sort of went around it, and then in that middle courtyard, I put the rocket ship. I made a speedbuild of that too, so I can link that video down below if you want to go back and watch it. It was definitely just a little bit abnormal, okay? So that hopefully gives you a bit of insight as to what goes on in this challenge. You can also probably tell that right now I'm placing a pond in the backyard. Not just any pond. That's what I call my murder pond. It's from Get Famous, and you can fill it with like piranhas and sharks and stuff. And also your Sims can drown in there pretty easily. And so in this legacy challenge, I've always had one of those murder ponds in my yard, like the whole time. This is kind of a long story, but I've been playing with this legacy and this family for 14 generations on my Twitch channel now. Obviously just 4 of those are Not So Berry. I played like a regular just normal legacy for 10 generations and then started Not So Berry with generation 11. So this family has like a long history of lore basically in my game. This is like the longest I have ever played with any one family ever in The Sims. And so over the years, we've collected a lot of very odd things, like that pond, sort of to give you an example. Now, I didn't include this in the footage of the build, but I will show you when I put the tour at the end of the video. I also have a very, very large collection of graves. I cannot understate this. I have a very large collection of graves. In fact, I have 79 graves, and I keep them all in my Sims front yard. I really am not joking. I cannot make this up. In every house that we've had so far, I've basically filled up the entire front yard with graves. So you can picture the front of this house. There's kind of like a sidewalk almost that I made that walks up to the front door. In front of that, there's like 2 tiles of just concrete. Those 2 tiles of concrete are entirely lined with gravestones in my Sims game. Entirely. There is not an ounce of space left. It is all full of graves. It sort of started out as a joke. Like as I began collecting more as the family got older, it kind of became like a meme where I would like write my name with the graves in the front yard and stuff like that. And now it's just continued on for so long, and I have so many that I can't stop now. Obviously, like some of those Sims died of old age because I've had the family for so long, but I really want to emphasize that some of those Sims died of old age. I've sort of been having a tendency to put a lot of my Sims in that pond in the backyard. I'll explain why, but some of those Sims also did not die of natural causes. Some of them died for other such reasons. So that's interesting. But I also have a lot of graves of like Sims that I've just found and like brought home with me. Like, you know, when you're just at the bar with your Sims and then some random elder Sim dies, whenever that happens, I'll usually just bring the grave back with me. Cause what am I gonna do? Like leave them there? That's even worse, I feel like, to just leave this random grave at the bar. So I usually bring it home and then put it in my front yard. I just add it to my collection. And also I have a lot of pet graves, which sounds bad and always makes me look bad. But remember, Sims pets cannot die from any unnatural causes. The only way pets die in The Sims is of old age. And I've played through 14 generations, so obviously I've had a lot of pets over the years, and so I have all of their graves. For a while I was kind of like trying to collect occult graves because like the vampires and the werewolves and aliens have like special headstones. So I have a bunch of those. I have a lot, and I'm just trying to warn you, okay? I'm just trying to give you some advance warning. of what you might expect when I show you the final tour. By the way, if any of this sounds like fun to you and you want to like tune in and watch my Twitch streams, don't feel like it's too late. I know it sounds kind of daunting because I've been playing with this family for so long, but really like every generation is sort of a new thing. Like it's kind of its own little mini series. So you could totally tune in now and you wouldn't be missing anything, because I literally just started this gray gen like today. I just aged up the sim and moved out today. So now is a really good time to start watching if you want to, and I can link my Twitch channel down below. I also do a lot of just general building on Twitch. Like obviously I built this on Twitch, but I do a lot of like other maybe slightly more normal and less shark infested builds on my Twitch channel. So if you're into that kind of thing, feel free to tune in. You want to hear something kind of embarrassing? I probably shouldn't admit to this on the internet, but basically the other day me and Dan went on like a little bit of a picnic. I know, sounds really cute, right? Actually, it was kind of hot and there were a lot of bugs, but that's Florida, so it's fine. But we like walked down to this pond that's like a 15-minute walk from our house, and we were like sat there on a bench eating our little picnic. And while we were there, I just started telling him about like all the things that I was doing in my Sims game. This is so embarrassing. Does anybody else do this? Do you like force your friends and loved ones to listen to you talk about The Sims? Because I tend to do this a lot. Obviously, I play a lot of The Sims, in case you hadn't noticed. It's kind of my thing, so I spend a lot of time playing The Sims. The problem is Dan edits my YouTube videos, so he already hears enough of me talking about The Sims. Like, he watches all of my videos, but worse, because he watches the unedited versions of my videos, and he has to be the one to cut down my rambling. But he doesn't usually watch my streams because he also streams around the same time, so like he can't really. And so I just started going on and on and on about this legacy challenge and like about all of the things that I have been doing recently in this family. The most recent ridiculous thing that I did was with the Mint generation, the first generation of Not So Berry. That sim is supposed to be a scientist, and I don't know if you've played the scientist career recently, but eventually you unlock a clone machine. Like at a certain point you have to build this clone machine for your career, and you can clone like gems and stuff that you need for your job, but you can also clone Sims. And I saw that and I was like, no, there's no way you can clone Sims. Oh, you can clone Sims, and it will make a clone of your sim. And so my Not So Berry sim, the Gen 1 sim, she made a clone of her wife. The wife's name was Bethany. She was a great sim, very nice lady. She actually saved the world from Strangerville. Iconic, even. Well, then there was two of her because I cloned her. And the clone had like the same name. They had all the same outfits on. It was like fully an identical clone of Bethany. And it just added the sim to my household. Okay, so what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do with a clone of my wife? I now have two of them. What? Hello? And so my first thought at the urging of my Twitch chat was to create like a dungeon in the basement. And so we like built a dungeon using like the get to work jail bars and stuff. I know this sounds really bad. We made like a dungeon in the basement. We locked fake Bethany in there. And then we sort of like got to joking about like Bethany being an evil clone and like her trying to take over the world and stuff. Well, what ended up happening was we had a battle to the death of the two Bethanys. I used that shark pond that I have in the backyard. I went to the park and I placed two of them down next to each other. And the way that pond works is that like if you jump into it when you're in a bad mood, you're like more likely for your sim to drown in it. I realize that sounds very morbid, but that's the way that it works. Is your sim like might drown. They don't actually get eaten by the sharks, but I like to pretend they do. And so I decided to have both the Bethanys, real Bethany and fake Bethany, both like jump into the pond over and over again until one of them died. And then whoever survived, you know, got to survive. Well, unfortunately, real Bethany is the one that died. And so fake Bethany was left, the clone was left. And we started joking around, like decided to play out this storyline where fake Bethany like completely replaced the original one and nobody knew. Like fake Bethany romanced real Bethany's wife. She like convinced the kids to like her. And eventually the only person that knew was the cat. And eventually the truth was revealed. I believe partially because of the cat. The cat was doing some real like investigative work. And then we killed fake Bethany as well. Admitting to this kind of thing in a YouTube video, I feel like makes it sound so much worse. But I feel like you can imagine how when you're doing this on stream, like live, everybody's egging you on and then it really spirals and it gets worse. Okay, but what's worse? Admitting this in a YouTube video or sitting at the park having a a picnic and forcing your husband to listen to you talk about it. It's not just me. You do this too, right? You also like tell people about your games. Please tell me it's not just me, please. Anyway, so my Sims build. Let me tell you about my Sims build for a second. You can see that I'm mostly done furnishing it now. We moved on to the upstairs, and I actually really like this bedroom, this like primary suite, because in this generation, I told you the Sim is supposed to be a slob. One of the like main storyline parts of this generation is they have to marry a neat Sim. And so I sort of liked the idea of their bedroom being like half messy and half neat, because obviously one side is like for a slob, other side is for a neat Sim. Currently, my Sim is not married or even dating anyone, but I decorated the room with one half being messy anyway. So I had like the left side of the bed have a bunch of clothes on the floor and like other stuff like that, and the right side of the bed is like perfectly pristine. Those clothes are also some of the only little bits of color in this whole build. The whole place is so gray. I know it's like kind of bland. Like you look at it and it's like, oh, there's like nothing going on. The only color is like the green from the plants. But like that's the whole vibe of the challenge. I'm not really sure if I love it either. It's different than when I was doing like the other generations, because when everything is red, it doesn't feel as bland. It's just because it's all gray. It like looks kind of sad to me. I don't love it that much, but it's okay. It is for the memes. It is for the challenge. We are really embracing it. It is kind of fun though, because like I said, I usually furnish the other generation's bedrooms to be like their color. So the whole house is gray, but like this Sim's kids' rooms will be purple because the next generation is plum. And one of his parents is still alive and their room is all yellow because they're the yellow gen Sim. So it's not like completely devoid of color. There's a little bit of it going on in here, but it is weird how it's like just 2 bedrooms are the only colorful parts of the whole house. I told you it was gonna be weird. I told you had to hear me out in the beginning of the video, because this is definitely not your average Sims build. But I do think that this kind of thing is sometimes the most fun thing to build in The Sims. I mean, one, it's just sort of fun to build stuff for Sims that you're actually playing with, because I build so often in this game, like way more often than I could ever actually use, because I really only play with like 2 households right now. I've got like a 14 generation legacy challenge on Twitch, and I've got a long legacy challenge series on YouTube, and I kind of only play with those Sims, but I'll build like 5 houses in a week. Obviously, I don't need to have my Sims move house 5 times in a week. So I oftentimes am building for like imaginary Sims, or like imagining households that you all will use, or like building for challenges. So it's kind of fun to build a house like this for Sims that I've been playing with for so long and that have sort of like such a unique storyline to them, you know, like it's just more detailed and it's more fun to build like this. It is definitely a challenge though, to use like all one color. To use all one color and also have it like not look terrible. At least with gray, you can use a lot of black and white as well, and the shades all kind of work together. It's even harder when you're doing like the red one or yellow or whatever, because there's so many shades of yellow. Like there's some really like bright yellows and some nice pastels, and they don't always look that good together. I'm getting worried about the pink generation, especially because the early on pink swatches in The Sims 4 are absolutely horrendous. They're like violently vibrant, essentially. And then they've more toned it down and started doing more pastels recently. But I think trying to pair those things together is going to be tough, because I dream of like pastel pinks, and I worry that there's not enough pastel pinks in the game to make an entire house. But that is a problem for future Kayla. I will worry about that later on. And that is pretty much the entire build. I'm gonna pop into the game now so I can show you like a proper tour and also show you all of my graves. I built this house in Mount Komorebi over here in like the sort of downtown area. Oh, great. Looming dread from fear of death. That's just perfect. I mean, I can't imagine why you would have such a fear. So this here is the finished product. Don't worry, the gallery does not come with my gravestones. I uploaded it before I placed all of those down, but I really was not kidding when I said I had them lining the entire street. We also have a bit of a fake driveway here. This is not a real car. This is just from debug. Your Sims can't even click on it, but it looks like I have a car. This thing can teleport you into space. It's an electroflux wormhole generator that my Sim made in that scientist career. So I've got that in the front yard. I've got some trash cans. Over here's my dead cow plant. And then in the backyard, we have a swing set. We have like some gardening planters. I have my sharks. This Sim is supposed to be in the fitness career, so I've got like an extra punching bag. I also put a fire pit and also a fireplace right here because we're in the snowy escape world and it gets really cold here. I liked the idea of having a couple places to sit outside, like in front of the fire. Classic chess table. It would not be a Simsy build without one. I like the layout of this yard. I think I used the space pretty well considering how small the lot is, and also like how much stuff I had to fit onto it. And then on the inside of the house, you walk up. Is that brown? I thought I used oh my God. I thought I used a black mailbox, but I didn't. That's embarrassing. Okay, well, the mailbox is there, and then you walk into like a little entryway right here. Are the lights off? Hang on, it's ruining the vibes. Okay, so we've got a little entryway right here. For some reason in this legacy, I always have a bag of money by the door. I don't know. This is the kind of thing that like, just don't worry about it. Look at the rest of the house and not like those parts. But this entry leads you straight into the kitchen. And over here, we've got this really nice like open kitchen dining plan. I've slowly added in a bunch of my weird little decor pieces. Those are not on the gallery. It's just an empty bookshelf on the gallery. I made this little like drink station over here. I was trying to decide between using like this drink tray or like one of the actual tea sets, but I decided I liked how this one looked better than the other drink trays. I love this one. This one is super cute, but like I just felt like they didn't really match the place very well. And this one was gray, but it had a bit of a red flower that kind of matched this. So I chose this one. This one just serves like lemonade, but it's okay. It's still kind of fun. Back here we have like the main bathroom for the whole floor. This is that yellow bedroom I was talking about. And this one is a bit, it's a bit odd. I've got all my collectibles. There's like aliens and stuff. This is a cool galaxy light. It even like moves. I also get a lot of questions about this. This is actually a movie poster. People ask if it's like a CC painting. It's not. It's just the poster from Get Famous. It's got a bunch of swatches, but this one looks kind of like a painting to me. So I use that there. Because in this generation, they're supposed to be like kind of into movies and have those family movie nights that I mentioned. I put some more posters on this wall, and this is like kind of the family living room space. I also have this cool light that sort of like glows and moves. I don't know. I got given that by Santa once and I've had it ever since. And then down here, we've got like a home gym area and little ensuite bathroom for it because the Sim's gonna be an athlete. Upstairs, we've got a little hallway with a computer, and then we have the Gray Gen's sister that lives in this room. She's kind of into art, so she's got like an easel and stuff. Also a gaming computer. This will eventually be the first kids room, but I don't have any kids yet. On the gallery, it is furnished though. And then this is that like main primary bedroom that is really messy on one side. I even tried to make their bathroom a little bit messy too. And there's an extra bathroom right here in the hallway. So overall, it is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. It kind of could be 5 bedrooms if you made this one a bedroom. I feel like I managed to fit a lot of stuff on a pretty small lot, so I'm proud of myself there. And I also think that it fits in pretty well with the rest of the neighborhood. It's pretty similar in shape to like these neighboring houses. Although the other neighbors don't really have a like grave fence in their front yard for whatever reason. I can't imagine why not. But this house I think turned out pretty cute. It is also on my gallery if you want to download it. Like I said, the gallery version does not have all of the weird stuff. It still has like the shark pond, but it doesn't have like a bunch of dead things. If you want to watch the previous yellow build, I'll link that down below for you. And if you want to watch us play with these Sims live, my Twitch channel is also linked for you. And if you like the idea of like a Sims Legacy challenge or a fun sort of chaotic Sim series, I've got one on YouTube too. So I'll get that playlist link for you. Thank you for watching this video. Have the best rest of your day. And with that being said, I'm gonna catch you all tomorrow, okay? Bye everybody. I'm serious though, this is the first episode of my YouTube series and this is that yellow speed build. I think that you'll like them. Go watch.